Welcome to the Transformation Perspective. I am Harper. I'm your host. Yes, it has been quite some time, but with life changes that happen, you have to adjust. You have to give up stuff. With the election full ramping up and volunteering for it, uh, you put some things on the back burner, right? That's all. So we're here. Today's episode is about the post 2024 election. I'm sure everybody here in America knows the results. Donald Trump is basically projected as the winner, as results are finalized, as if you know history, that technically the election has not been certified yet. The electors have not cast their votes. That's not till December. So this is why we call President-elect Trump um, going into this. But yes, it looks like here with like Arizona, Nevada still trying to count their votes and everything like that. Um, Trump has enough electoral votes, declared the winner. Harris gave a concession speech uh, this afternoon, conceding here. So that gives us our new 47th president of the United States. With that, also, we need to understand the balance of power going forward. Going into the election, the Republicans had control of the House and the Democrats had control of the Senate. As of right now, last I checked before I went live here, that the Senate had 52 seats in favor of the Republicans. So the Republicans now have control over the Senate. And why that's important is the Senate confirms or denies appointees as well as cabinet members for the president. So if you're concerned or wondering what does that mean and what does the Trump administration actually going to look like, the vetting process for people who are going to be loyal to Trump this time around versus constantly firing people in his first administration in 2016 to 2020, you're looking at a vetting process that are going to be completely loyal to President-elect Trump going forward. And people who are definitely part of the MAGA movement on the conservative side. So those people will be able to be confirmed really quickly because they have majority on the Republican side. That what it also means is if a Supreme Court justice that's not a conservative dies or retires, Trump can nominate another conservative justice and make it 7-3. Or if a conservative justice retires, he can at least nominate another conservative justice. There is talks that if Trump won, which he has, some of the conservative justices that are getting up there in age might decide to step down instead of trying to stay in for another 4 years to kind of serve out life terms. Maybe they could serve out 10 more years. It really depends. That they might just retire so Trump can nominate more conservative justices. This is why the election was so critical going forth and trying to understand what the ramifications were going into the future. It wasn't just the here and now. And I've talked about this in previous episodes where it's about the long-term investment into American economy, family, structure, culture, whatever you might want to call that. But that's what you're looking at. Is it's not just the 4 years that you get Trump now and then he's done. And then we'll see where the Republican Party is, and who knows what's going to happen with the Democrat Republican Party as they try to figure out what happened with this election. So you're looking at potentially major implications for future generations of what's to come. It wasn't a short-term thing. Every time you vote in election, it's not for the here and the now, even though policies are for here and now. It's the lasting effect that's going to happen. So with that, you also have the House. The House is going to take a little bit of time to get all the results in. But currently, Last I checked, Republicans have flipped a few seats already. Um, and if holds par, Republicans will probably take control of the House again. That would guarantee Trump for the next 2 years to have full, unchecked balances of power between the Supreme Court, which is basically going to be checked by the legislative branch, then the president's veto power to check Congress. Well, he's got his Congress in his pocket. You would have all the branches of government basically having full force of conservative Republican aspects, even though Supreme Court justices are not supposed to be political. We know it's very political these days. So those results will keep coming in, but it's looking more and more like that the Republicans will have full control over everything. So for the next 2 years, all right, Trump can push almost any agenda he almost really wants to get through. All right. Tax bills, tax cuts that he's promising. All right. It starts in Congress, and both chambers being Republican, those tax cuts are going to pass. Trump's going to implement them. Well, I've talked about this in previous episodes, what tax cuts actually do. It's, yes, a short-term quick fix. Everyone's happy. Maybe it gets more money back in your pocket here and the now. Everyone feels fantastic, wonderful. And then you forget about looking into the future investments that you've got. In 1980, the national debt was around $1 trillion. And then Reagan comes in with his Reaganomics, massive tax cuts, Bush tax cuts, all right, Trump tax cuts. And I've had an episode about this. We've added $35 trillion approximately. We're almost at 36 trillion now. So about $35 trillion to the national debt in 44 years. Mind you, prior to that, in around about 200 years, we only had $1 trillion of debt. We had higher taxes, kept money flowing through the government. So if Trump wants to cut taxes for the wealthy, cut corporate taxes, right? So where's the money coming from that's going to fund the government? We already struggle with government shutdown threats constantly. Oh, the no tax on tips. Okay, so that money's not coming in. We're not going to tax Social Security. Okay, money's not coming in. But if we don't cut spending, then what? It's like basically saying you took a new job, and instead of getting paid, like, let's use round numbers, $100,000, and you kept spending if like you had $100,000, but you took a job for about $40,000, but you kept spending at $100,000. Where would you be? You'd be flat broke, bankrupt, but somehow America keeps going. That's a whole different topic I can get into. But that's the implications that you've got going forward that people don't think. We're thinking the short-term investments that are here from this election. I'm going to cut taxes. Okay. Do you understand what that means long-term? Well, it's going to increase businesses. Okay. Have you looked at the history of tax cuts in America and what it's done for the working middle class? The working middle class has actually suffered, which is interesting because the Democrat Party, one of the game plans they need to look at for 2026 is get back to campaigning for the working middle class, right? Because that's the approach the Republican Party has done. That's what Trump has done. But once again, it comes down to understanding what happens when you do cut taxes. It does actually hurt the working middle class. If you're watching on TikTok or any other social media, tune in for the full episode on my YouTube channel. So, what this all entails, okay, is the fact that you're looking at national debt potentially going up If Trump put a national debt of 8.6, something like that, $1 trillion on the national debt in 4 years. Yes, Biden put on 6.3 trillion approximately. What's going to happen if we cut taxes? Corporate taxes cut again, saying that's going to drive companies to come to the United States. But it comes down to wages. Well, then if we get rid of illegal immigrants, then wages are going to go up. No, that's not how that actually works on the economic system. Remember, we have standards that we have to pay unless Americans are going to pay willing to get paid $7.25 federal minimum wage, right? Or whatever the state minimum wage is. Unless you're willing to do those kind of jobs in factories that Trump is promising to bring back because of cutting corporate taxes. Americans expect more from their wages so they can make a living. This is partly why businesses have gone overseas, right? Yeah, we don't like it. We're in a global market. So let's solve a problem by not creating another problem that's there, right? You're going to cause national debt to rise. We have no money coming in, right? The wealthy continue to get wealthier, right? And the working class continues to suffer because of that. The wages have not grown. Look at my previous episodes. Wages have actually gone down since we started cutting taxes. That is something to be concerned about. And that's actually one of the things that he proposed last night, kind of in his acceptance speech, is what he's looking for is focusing on the economy and tariffs. I've talked about this in previous episodes as well, that he wants to increase tariffs. Well, yeah, it sounds great and all. Oh, we're going to go after China, 60% tariff. Yeah, they're going to pay for it. No, that's not what happens. It goes back on the American consumer. That cost is offset on the American consumer, right? So simple math here. For every dollar, if it's a 60% tariff that's on, all right, Chinese goods coming in, that means the price has gone up 60 cents. If we're going to increase tariffs by 10% on all imported goods, for every dollar, it's going up 10 cents. Are your wages going to be going up that much? Did Trump guarantee your wages are going to be going up that? No. Those companies do not eat that cost because Trump says and Congress passes tariffs. That is not how that works, right? Inflation will go up. It's not these signs that I've seen out there saying, oh, Trump equals lower prices, Harris equals higher prices. Prices won't go down. When you're trying to level off inflation, it's not deflation. You don't want deflation in your economy. That does not help the situation at all. So what you need is to somehow get inflation in check, but also have wages to grow higher than what inflation is growing. So the feds want to consider, like, we want to be around 2% inflation. That means we need wages to be above 2% growth every year. But yes, there are some companies, we're giving you a 2% raise for, adjusting for inflation. Well, that doesn't help me, right? You need to go above and beyond that aspect. So that is part of it. If you increase the tariffs, inflation, goods are going to go up. Things are going to get more expensive over the course of the next 4 years that Trump is in office. So we've asked for lower prices from Trump. He says he's going to make the economy better by that. Educate. That is the big key right there. I teach social studies. I teach economics. I've been in schools where there is no economic courses. And a lot of schools are trying to get back to personal finance or some kind of econ course, which is good because we need, as Americans, just basic knowledge of how things work in the economy, how the tax systems works, how tariffs work. Heck, go back to colonial history, American Revolution, for that matter. What part of that was tariffs? A lot had to do with tariffs. That the British decided to say, you know who's going to pay for the French Indian War? The colonists. You know how we're going to make them pay? And this is what Britain Parliament was thinking. This is like Trump saying, you know who's going to pay for this? Mexico's going to pay for the war. Well, you know who's going to pay for these tariffs? China's going to pay for them. Yeah, the colonists were the ones who had to pay for those tariffs. We're going to start taxing the colonists and help them pay for the war that happened. Yeah, that didn't sit so well. All right. Maybe I should do an episode about how this country was founded on mobsters, gangsters, and almost like tax evaders, you could say, because they didn't want to pay the tariffs. And that's basically how this country's founded, right? So we don't like paying our taxes when you try to sneak them on. But once the country was established and we created our tax system and we had high taxes for the rich and the wealthy, the American economy grew exponentially as we hit the Industrial Revolution and we got through major wars and a depression. It wasn't until the fact that we start to cut taxes that American wages have kind of gotten stagnant over that course. So that is something to look forward to in Trump administration, saying we're going to tariff, we're going to cut more taxes. Also is the mass deportation of your undocumented immigrants and finish building the border wall. So what that entails is, and I think I've talked about this too, is if you're going to do a mass deportation, one, what's the legal aspects behind that? How do you do that? If you do the National Guard and military, what does that look like? Are you knocking on doors? Are you storming in houses? Are you picking them up off the streets just randomly? What? That doesn't sound like an America that anybody really wants to live in. That people are just going to be randomly taken and then sent back to somewhere. And does it also include those who have been here for 5, 10, 15, 20 years that were brought here as small children that now cannot get a path to citizenship? Are they being deported and all they know is American culture? They've never been, they don't remember being in their other country that they were born in. Are we deporting them? So if you have 11 to 25 million illegal immigrants in this country, that's these projected numbers that the Republicans are throwing out. If you, let's say hypothetically, we've removed all of those in the 4 years, please tell me where you're going to replace those workers and who you're going to replace them with. And we talked about the jobs some of these illegal immigrants have. Okay. Where? It's all about supply and demand. If they're the ones who are supplying the workforce for the goods and services that Americans demand, but you eliminate that part of the economic equation, you eliminate workers, same thing that happened during the pandemic. You eliminate workers because businesses shut down. What happens? Yeah, maybe we start saving money, but we're not going out during the pandemic. But if we eliminate 11 to 25 million people that are in the workforce, and yet the demand is still there, but the services and goods aren't being produced, then you're competing for goods and services that are scarce. And if you understand economics, when resources are scarce, prices go up. That will cause inflation. So another factor to consider. For those who are big climate advocates, cutting climate regulations on factories. Not concerned. Trump is not concerned about climate change at all. And remember, it's a hoax. It doesn't exist, kind of thing. Roll back climate initiatives. Get back out of the Paris Climate Accord. Pull back out of that one again. Right? So once again, we're going to keep doing these 4-year cycles where Trump gets us out in 2016. We go back in, we put more regulations on, and then now we're going to do the same thing. He says what's hurting the economy is all these regulations. Yes, you can make that argument. But if you want to have the EPA trying to make sure we have clean water to drink and clean air to breathe, fantastic. But now we're saying deregulate that. What does that do for this country? I want clean drinking water. I want clean air. I don't want pollution everywhere. Drill, baby, drill for oil. There are better solutions out there. Why are we continuing to think like it's 1960 or 1950? I propose a solution out there that renewable energy sources very much untapped into our system. We could go solar, not to build on farm fields, but what if we put them in somehow along the roads? Maybe we could channel the wind forces that vehicles on highways create to create some kind of turbine aspect that can tap into that energy not being used. On top of rooftops, on top of side of buildings, whatever, schools, across if we change that grid to focus on that renewable energy, we don't need to drill, baby, drill and harm the environment even more. But remember, it's all about short-term gains here. Your pocketbooks will have more money because gas prices are going to be down short-term, but I don't care about the long-term implications of what that might do for future generations. They weren't thinking that at the Industrial Revolution back in the 1800s. Absolutely not. Right? Why did we have to clean up the Great Lakes? Why did we have to clean up any rivers? Because they were so heavily polluted because we didn't have any regulations. That's what we want to get back to. So, this is where we sit. We want to create problems and saying those are our solutions, instead of continuing to advance with human civilization and our society. The old way worked. Let's go back to it. You could make the arguments like, well, Harper, you've argued about higher taxes. The old way worked. Why would you want to go back? Well, also, cutting taxes isn't working. There's a happy medium that you want. Too low, not so good. Too high, not so good. Where's the happy medium that's going to benefit everybody? That is the social contract theory. What benefits the entire community? Not the, it benefits me and only me kind of mentality. So, other thing is, he says he's going to end the war in Ukraine on day one, but really no indication of what that's going to be looking like. All right. And also a national abortion ban aspect where he says, I'm not going to do that. It's up to the states. But when you have unchecked power, and Republicans want that, and if they push a measure, if they've got full control, who says Republicans would not try to impose a 6-week abortion or make all abortions illegal, which would affect miscarriages, which would affect all women who are like 25% of the population that naturally have a miscarriage. So then they would be medically affected by that. But who cares about all that? If it honestly got to Trump's desk and it has to be party lined, we'll see what he actually does when you have unchecked power. The unchecked power of, also the immunity aspect that's out there too. Can't touch me. This is not democracy. We have unchecked power going in it, absolute immunity as a president. And then now we have all these implications that can potentially come through. So the two questions I propose here: what do Democrats do now? Right? What do they do going forward? They lost this election. They lost the Senate. Doesn't look like they're going to gain back the House. Statistics are showing that Harris underperformed in a lot of demographics. And here's a little foreshadow. My season 2 will be analyzing those demographics of what happened and what the Democrat Party really needs to do and reshape its image. Okay. When Biden said in 2020 he was elected, he's like, I'm the transition president to the next generation, and then decided not to step down and have a primary to find a new generation. Set us back? Maybe. We need a new generation. We need new ideas. We need Gen Zs to step up and start running for office. Because I want to break that down in season 2, right? The demographics that we've got. Gen Zs, right? And your Gen Ys, based on population, right? Gen X and boomers outperformed with voting. And once again, what do? We elect a boomer into office, outdated with the ideas. We don't like change, but we wanted a change candidate in here. That's really hard to understand. We want change, but we don't like change. Let's keep with the status quo of what we've got, keep having boomers in here when it's time to meet a new idea of generation of ideas. And that might spark something. So that's the question I propose going into season 2 of the transformation perspective, right? What are the Democrats going to do? And we're going to break down those statistics, right? And then here's the question: what pull does Trump have now on the country? What pull does Trump have on the conservative movement? He can't serve after 2028. Is this the new Republican Party that we've got? Is this where things are going? Because he actually has more support now than he's had. He wins the popular vote this time around. He's got more support from his allies on senators and House of Representatives than he did in 2016 to 2020, and even trying to run for election in 2020, re-election. He's at the peak of his time as a political person in office. And that is the big question that needs to be answered in season 2. Where does the Republican Party go, and how much pull does Trump have? Right? Are there those moderate conservatives out there instead of the MAGA conservatives that could stand up to Trump and vote against him? But then what would happen if he says he's going to go after his political opponents? Do we live now in a time where the government's supposed to fear the people? Are we now in the time period where the people now fear the government? Because if we speak out against our political opponent, what's going to happen to us? My perspective is that is also a violation of your constitutional rights. Life, liberty, freedom of speech, all that. Imposing Christian ideas also violates the First Amendment of religion upon you. There's a lot to get into for season 2. And yes, I'll probably be taking a little break while I do this research and get ready for this, right? If there's anything that comes out breaking out, I'll add more episodes. But I just want to say thank you for watching. I know I said I was going to do 17 episodes, 17 straight weeks, 17 episodes, one per week, but life does happen. Okay. And I think anyone attests out there that life does happen and you have to make sacrifices and you have to adjust your schedule the best you can. And I commend that for that. And how you're feeling after today's, finding out today's results are completely valid. There are 71, 72, whatever the total is of the popular vote right now that are extremely happy about the results. But then half the nation is also not happy about the results. And that needs to be validated. That if you want to push the agenda that you think all Americans want, you didn't win 3/4 of the popular vote. You didn't win 100% of the popular vote. Still half of the nation disagrees with what is to come. And as a politician, one should recognize the divide. The independent vote was a shocking, staggering high number. And like I said, season 2 will go into that. About what those numbers represent. And is it time that we create a moderate party? You have a Democrat Party. You have a Republican Party. America, the independent vote clearly spoke out. Not happy with either candidate, and they had to choose one. That they are moderate swinging, that they have liberal views and conservative views. We call them independents, but I think it's time the third party is formed, and it's the moderate party. 2026. Can we get it done, America? Have a moderate party. That will shake up America. That will wake up both parties. So, before I sign off, thank you for watching. Thank you for being patient. If you've been waiting for another episode, I know I dropped several short episodes, and that was the best I could do in election time. So, thank you for all that have subscribed and have shared out the videos for this season. Appreciate all of the wonderful comments, if they're positive and even negatives, because guess what? You took the time to watch my episodes. So I do appreciate you. So I appreciate all of you as viewers out there. Thank you very much. Your feelings are very valid today, going forward. This is a moment. Be in the moment. Highs, lows happen all the time. We'll keep moving forward because that's what we do. Thanks for watching. I'm Harper. This has been season 1 of The Transformation Perspective.